David Plouffe this morning on Good Morning America talked a little bit about the aftermath and what has to happen next for Democrats. Take a listen.
It's frustrating because I think even a mediocre campaign in Massachusetts probably would have won that election. But I think what we have to do here is have to recognize we won the House and Senate in 2006. We won the White House in 2008 because people sent an unmistakable message to us they wanted change. We got to deliver on that. We've got to pass health care reform.
Still not sure, but I feel like the White House thinks Martha Coakley wasn't a great candidate.
I'm hearing that.
Yeah, the message gets through somehow. MARIE COX joining us from Air America. And Anna, you heard David Plouffe there. We've got to get health care. How critical is that, and what's the path forward now that there are 41 Republican senators once again?
Apparently we're pausing.
Pausing?
I actually think we might hit rewind. Rewind in a race. I think that we were talking about this earlier, Rick. I've always been pessimistic about what's going to happen in healthcare. I've always thought it's going to be a very watered-down version. Now it is a question of whether anything we can call healthcare reform gets passed. I think we might see some health insurance reform because the insurance companies are still villains in the eyes of many people, no matter how much they give to senators and congressmen. But I do sense a rewind and a race.
And not just that the insurance companies are seen as villains, but the American people, the parts of healthcare that they do seem to be able to understand and their needs are this idea of portability and not, when you lose your job, that you don't lose your insurance, that you can't be kicked off for pre-existing. I mean, those are the actual communication parts of this healthcare bill that they've gotten.
Right, and that's the part that people interact with every day.
Right.
Like you know what happens to you if you lose your job, what happens to your insurance. And so it's nice to know that that's not going to happen anymore. But are there going to be any big systematic changes? I mean, are more people going to get covered? A large percentage more going to get covered? I don't know. I don't think so.
And what do you think about the 2010 landscape? This is clearly a bad sign for Democrats anywhere if a race like this can be competitive.
I wonder if at the national level the Democrats are as complacent as they were at the state level in Massachusetts. I think, from everything I've heard, people are pretty concerned about 2010. Like, it's not a surprise that 2010 is going to be difficult. I think maybe the magnitude of how difficult it will be is now very clear to people. But everyone was gearing up for a tough year. It's no news that it's going to be a tough year. And it's true that if the Republicans can field candidates, every candidate is as good as Brown was, and every Democratic candidate is as bad as Coakley was, they're going to have a good year.
And probably in any political environment that may be. But David Plouffe, as Rick was saying earlier, pretty defiant this morning. I mean, pretty dug in. Does the White House, you heard Randy Weingarten there say, we hear that message last night, and we need to say that we hear that. Do you sense that the White House may want to alter that just a bit and have a bit of humble pie, or no? They see the path forward here as charging on.
I think the president's taste for humble pie is not very great.
Right. No president's taste for it.
But I think it's just a question of what the kinds of things they can say behind closed doors and what kinds of promises they can make. They're just going to have to scale all that back down. Scale down what they want to demand, I guess what I should say. I think all this talk about the pause button is as humble as he's going to get.
There is some humility there to even concede that. Finally, Anna, what do Democrats have to do to try to change the message and do something that changes the storyline?
Well, if I knew that, I would probably be working as a Democratic campaign consultant and making a lot more than I do as a journalist.
But we heard move the economy. Can they do that?
Move the economy. Again, there's sort of a real-world aspect that I think the Democrats have not been able to communicate very well, except when it comes to these very specific things in health insurance reform. People still don't have jobs. The economy is still bad. And until Democrats can figure out a way to deliver something, it's going to stay bad.
MARIE COX, Air America, bringing us to the real world, as always.
Thank you very much for the day after analysis. Click us on again tomorrow.
Twitter.com/TheNote. Where were you a year ago?